All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have our base presidents on today. We have some of our department chairs with us today. We have some of our officers here today, and we're all here today to talk about the dues restructure and the votes that we have that opened up today, and kind of why this is here. And especially, I think what we're going to do today is really kind of make it as basic as we can with our base presidents, and let them talk to you about how their base works and what they're doing at their base. And they'll give you a lot of information today. So hopefully you'll leave this meeting today and you'll have a lot of information that will help you make an informed vote. Also, hopefully you've already received your booklet in the mail. Those were sent out this last week, and I know we're all receiving those now. And like I said, the vote opened today at noon. So we want to make sure we can give you as much information as we possibly can for you to make an informed vote. So Josh, let's go to the first slide that we have on our deck here. How did we get here? And we're going to go quickly to the next slide. First and foremost, I think most of you know by now that we have not had a dues increase here since 2001, which is quite a long time ago, about 23 years ago. And back in 2001, the increase that we have been at $41 a month was about the same as the top out wages at that time for our flight attendants. Our wages have increased since that time at 81%. We've had 2 contracts since then, and with each contract, our wages have gone up. Why is it that we have to do this now, today? And I've got this slide up just to kind of remind everyone of the negotiations. Hopefully you haven't forgotten it so quickly, but these negotiations, we increased the value of our contract over 5 years by $4.2 billion. Okay, that was pay scale increases of 33 to 36% over the 5 years. And when you add boarding pay into that, that's increases of 41 to 44%. That's in wages and in boarding pay alone. Of course, we had other increases with it. We have our 401k that we're really excited about, that's going to be implemented here January 1st. Of course, the per diem, you're already seeing that went in October 1st. Profit sharing, I hope we will see that someday. I shouldn't say that like that, but you know, I think we're all feeling that way today. Boarding pay goes in April 1st, not too far away. And of course, let's not forget our retro checks, $514 million in retro pay that everyone has received. We also have coming our sit rig, and the RHRA is already paying out to some of our flight attendants who are retiring. We also doubled our training pay. And so for flight attendants, that's $160,000 average increase in value per flight attendant over the 5 years. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how all this works. Okay, so first and foremost, before we get into that, we're going to go to the measures, and we're going to talk about each of the measures that are in this vote, and just make sure everybody understands that we have 3 different measures in the vote. So Larry Salas, our vice president, is going to talk about our first measure, and that's the dues restructure.
Yes, so ballot measure number 1 is to restructure our dues to the 6-year pay step for every member.
All right. And ballot measure number 2 is for our negotiations fund. It's called the NNRF. So I know that a lot of people, as we put NNRF out there, you're not used to seeing it like that, but our negotiations fund is basically there to make sure when we get to our next negotiations, we have enough money to negotiate that next contract. Now, that fund, what we are trying to do, because right now we have over $13 million in that fund, and that's after we just spent 5 years in negotiations. So what we realized is we really need to have with this measure a floor and a ceiling, or a minimum and a maximum in that account. And so that if we get way too much money in there, instead of just keeping adding money to this account, that we would now be using some of that money for services for our members, services that all of you need on a daily basis. And ballot measure number 3.
Sure. Ballot measure number 3 is titled the Annual Dues Payment Incentive. This measure would provide a discount to members who choose to pay their dues in full for an entire dues year. The percentage or the amount that's discounted and the time frame will be communicated in advance. And any members who choose to do that, again, would receive a discount on their annual dues. If you are voting for this measure, this doesn't mean that you're committing to paying your dues up front. It's just saying you're voting for the option to provide that to the membership.
Okay, and Josh, if we can, let's go to the website.
Sure.
Okay, because we've added a couple more tools to the website so to make it easier on you to be able to calculate how this would affect you. And so Josh is going to go to the website and show you, you know, we like our calculators here at APFA. We have 2 of them for you, and hopefully all of you will take advantage of what's on the website. And we're going to show you how they work.
Right. So voting is now live on the APFA website. To get to the page, you'll either click on Dues Restructure or Vote Here. I like big buttons, so we'll go to that one. And it's going to take a minute to load. All right. So we have a lot of information on this website to peruse. A lot of the same information that's located in the booklet is on the website. Before I get to the calculators, I'm going to just show you guys what information is included. When you're ready to vote, you'll click the big purple, is that more fuchsia, Vote Here button. We have information on the page. We've got our previous town hall, information about all of the ballot measures. We have some information on you know, why these ballot measures, what reform measures have taken place, letter from leadership. So you can go through all that information, but let's go to the calculators. So you're going to click on the button that says click here to view calculators. And once this page loads, you will need to log in to view the information. So I'm going to click the button that says log in to use this calculator. This is the same feature that we had on the website for the tentative agreement. So if you'll log in, if you don't remember your password, you can click forget your password.
Hopefully everybody saved their password,
Hopefully,
right?
if you're like me, you have a million websites with a million passwords. So don't hesitate to reach out to if you need assistance. Our phone center is open. The phone number is on this page and you can call if you need some assistance. All right, so this first calculator is called Dues versus Wages Calculator. This calculator is something that you can use to first calculate how much wages have gone up for you at your individual pay step. And then you can run a simulation on how much money your new wage makes depending on the hours that you fly. So it defaults to the 13th year. We'll start with 13-year pay. And if you click the drop down that says hours, why don't we start with a flight attendant that flies 100 hours at 13-year pay. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you the amount of money that you made with JCBA and then the amount of money that you make with the current CBA. And we show you how much more you're making in your hourly rate, as well as how much more you'll make a month. Now, just note, obviously, this doesn't include any of your premiums. If you fly lead or purser or international, it's not including any of the boarding pay that will be coming in. This is just your flat hourly
Or
rate.
the per diem.
Or the per
The
diem.
increase in per diem.
Or your increase in
Right.
per diem. So this is just so you can see in one place your flat hourly rate and how much more you're making. And then the last row, we show how much our current dues are, what the new increase would be as of January 30th, and how much more per month that is. And so altogether, we get a picture of how much more you're making per hour, how much more you're making per month, and how much more the union is asking in dues. Let's do another example. Anyone have a year that we want to look at?
How about we look at year 3?
Year 3. All right, so let's look at a more junior flight attendant. Year 3, and we'll do 75 hours for a reserve month. And so a year 3 flight attendant with JCBA was making 2,500 gross without any premiums. Now 3,000 and then 462 more a month. And then we show what the wage increase is.
How about one more?
Sure.
How about year 8?
All right, let's look at year 8. So year 8, how many hours?
Let's do year 8, probably like, what do you guys think? 85? 85?
That's good. Great, so at 85 hours, again, we see 4,300 JCBA, 50, almost 5,200 with the new wages, close to 1,000 a month in wage increases. All right, so we encourage you to use this calculator for your own simulations and see how much more you're making with the CBA. Our second calculator is comparing our dues over the length of this contract based on your seniority. So as we stated earlier, the dues, the proposal that we're sending out to the membership is tying it to the 6-year wages for all flight attendants tied to the 6-year wage step. So it defaults to the 13th year. You can see how the wages increase over the 5 years of the contract, and then what the dues would look like over that duration. We also show you below that what it looks like year over year if our dues remain the same at $41. Anyone have a suggestion for another year to look at?
Let's see here. This is year
About 6.
6. Yeah, let's
So
do
you can
6.
see what happens with the year 6 flight attendant. So this is a projection of what your individual pay step makes for the next 5 years. So a year 6 flight attendant today, next year is at pay step 7, pay step 8, pay step 9, and pay step 10. So that's how you can see how your dues relate to your hourly rate. And then anyone else?
I think that's good. We might go back to these calculators with some of our questions.
Yeah, we'll have some more.
Because I think it might help us with some of the answers. Because I know there's a lot of concern for our junior flight attendants, right? And at the end of the day, listen, I would say this at $41 an hour. We've always, even with our previous rates, we were always above what our starting wages were. So we can come back to that when we get into those questions. Josh, before we move on, one last thing. I just want to make sure everybody realizes these are in the mail. Hopefully you will read them, take them on your trip with you. That is why we printed them out, so that you had the opportunity to read. Also, we have a call center if you have questions that you can, I can tell you during the TA, I saw people marking all over theirs and calling the call center and asking questions. So that's why we have the call center open for you, so that you can ask questions to the reps that are answering there.
Because reading is fundamental.
All right, so let's move on. We've got all the base presidents here, and they are very, very busy. They always have lots of meetings helping our flight attendants. And so I know this is, even having them on it, we're taking precious time out of their day when they are very, very busy. So we're going to start off with, we're going to ask, I'll have a couple of base presidents answer the questions. We'll just do them one at a time. And the first question we have is how are the union reps paid at your base? And if you guys can, I know everybody thinks that everybody's on a full trip removal. If you can kind of discuss the different ways that people are paid at your base. And I'm going to start off with our biggest base in the system. I'm sure Amber can tell you how many flight attendants she represents in Dallas. But Amber, why don't you get started? Because I know you've got a lot of flight attendants that you're dealing with on a regular basis.
So thank you, Julie. Thank you, Josh. At DFW, we have 7,287 flight attendants. Just we're real close to that number of 7,300. I do know they are continuing to want to grow DFW. They've thrown around a number. I'm waiting to see if that comes true. But currently, if we're talking about where we are now versus where we are before, so obviously before COVID, things were a little bit different financially for the union. We were very limited. When we got to be at a place where we were fiscally, or as a union, we are fiscally responsible. I had at one point 8 PPOs for the amount of meetings and work that we do here at DFW, and we are down to 6. 5.5, I guess is how I should say it. 5.5 is 6. We have 6 reps, and that includes Amy and myself. We are just, do you want me to go and talk about my meetings, or do you want me to wait on that and stuff like that?
Let's make sure that everybody knows what a PPO is.
Okay, so a PPO is a paper bid. So we bid like we normally would, but it's just for paper purposes only. So it's what we would have held. So we only hold what we would have held. So I'm still not senior enough. I still do not hold IPD. Therefore, I don't get the IPD. It's what my seniority would have held. And it's up to a max. We just made some policy changes at DFW. We were very fiscally responsible in how we did our budget in trying to utilize all of the reps. So yeah, 7. I think now we're down to 6 PPOs, and that's a paper bid.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Amber, because I think one of the questions that we've received is how are representatives at APFA paid? And the representatives at APFA are paid based on what they could fly as a flight attendant. Right. So correct. Someone who's in DC may be paid differently than someone who's paid in Dallas, just because of the nature of what they're able to fly. Correct. If it's international, those types of things.
Correct. And it's based off of if you're subject for reserve. I've just now where I'm no longer on reserve, but there for a while, my PPO was 75 hours, right? That's what I was given. And my reserves as well. If their number hits reserve, then their PPO is 75 hours. The max that we can hold is 110. And that's what here at DFW, that's the max. But let me just go ahead and say that while that seems like it's a lot of hours, and it is a lot of hours, but there is a lot of work. There's a lot of time behind that's my personal time that I give to the base as well. So it's not just the days that I'm required to give to the union per policy manual, which just now got bumped from 18 to 22 if you're going to hold 110 hours. But it's, a max of 22 days. And I can assure you that the reps at DFW, they are I speak for Dallas, and I'm sure everybody's hardworking, but I can speak on Dallas' behalf. They are hardworking reps, and they literally are on the phones, calls, texts, emails, helping the flight attendants. And a lot of their time is volunteer too, regardless of the amount of days it's required of them to work.
Thanks, Amber. All right. Scott Hazelwood, who is the base president for Charlotte.
Hey, first thing I want to say about the financials, Charlotte, we're very cautious with the money. We're very aware of how we spend the money. Given our budget, we have about little over 3,000 flight attendants, so we're a little bit less than half the size of Dallas. So you can imagine our budget's a lot smaller. So we would have enough money for about 3 people to have PPOs. We made the decision with the money that if we all took a little bit less, then we could stretch that out and we could pay more reps. So currently we have 5 PPOs, 5 full-timers. We have 2 part-timers that are paid, and then we have numerous volunteers. How does that work? Our volunteers, people that volunteer generally start with a specialty, and then they help us out. They move up. There is no training. They just get really involved. They move into a pay thing. And that's pretty much how all of us have moved into the positions, into a paid position or a full-time position. So if you think about the reps in my base, they're on a PPO, but they might be taking 75 hours a month. Okay. But they're working 20 to 25 days a month. And so is we pride ourselves here in Charlotte that we will answer the phone. Not only are we in meetings, the number of meetings that we have, if you're saying how many per day, you could have 8 or 9 per day, or you could have 2 or 3 per day. But the biggest thing is we're also expected to staff our office. Even though our office is virtual, we try and staff it 7 days a week. And that's a lot of volunteer work with even the people that are paid in the position, and Frank and myself. It's a big commitment there. We, just answering phones, answering questions, protecting the contract, fighting for pay. Big thing is fighting unnecessary discipline right now. And we're basically just trying to keep the company honest. So that's how we're paid in Charlotte. We don't have a set schedule. We don't have a number of days people work. Our full-timers have committed to making it work and just getting it done and staffing the union.
Thanks, Scott. I can tell you this, this is not 5 days a week, 9 to 5. I know I've been on the phone with many of the base presidents, many of the reps, everybody, their phones are always on. And if it's the weekend, I'm sitting right next to Jeff and Marty, so I'm not going to look at them. But everybody answers the phone, because if something's going on, we know we have to take care of our flight attendants. So I know you guys do a great job. Thanks, Scott. Great explanation of how it works in Charlotte. Everybody's a little different. That's why we want to kind of point that out. All right, next we're going to hear from a little bit smaller of a base. Boston, we've got Kelly Powers, the base president there.
Hi there. So I'm actually a medium-sized base now. I do like.
Oh yeah, medium size. Sorry.
But no, to give people an understanding, when I started 6 years ago, Boston was about 450 flight attendants. During the furlough, we reduced down to about 250. We are now up to 750 a couple years later. So I know, yay, Boston's growing. But so to give you perspective of how much the workload has changed, right? We've shifted so much in a medium-sized base. So we are not on full PPO. We are, I try to say we're given a kind of like a number of what we hit hourly. So Nicole and I, the base vice president and myself, we share approximately 80 now. With the new CBA, we share about 82 hours of trip removals is the best way I can describe it per our budget.
Between the two of you.
Excuse me?
Between the two of you.
Between the two of us, yes, between the two of us. So pre-CBA, it was about 100 hours, again, split. We do have the ability per the Constitution to have 7 BCRs at the base. Currently, we have, in anticipation of the CBA, we enlisted a few new scribes in Boston to help be a little bit more fiscally responsible, because in order for Nicole and I to do meetings, we bid our normal schedules like everyone else does in PBS. And then what we do is either via trading trips via TTS UBL, or we might have to drop or move stuff around, or even trip remove, to bring us in for meetings. If we've got 3 or 4 meetings scheduled on a day, that could be a 12-hour removal for myself. It could be an 18-hour trip removal for Nicole. And so in anticipation of the CBA, we added on a couple new scribes to then say, okay, now if we only have to remove one of us, or if I happen to be on a day off, I can now pay a scribe or pay myself only 5 hours worth of pay for those 3 or 4 meetings per day. So we're trying to be more creative in how we budget those hours, but then the 82 hours that are shared between Nicole and I, we now are then paying our scribes, who are also volunteering some of their time as well, because we don't give them a full 5 hours per day. It might be like you get 5 hours for 2 days or something like that. It depends how many meetings or how long these meetings go. But we just have to be very creative in how we're doing this. But to give you some perspective, I wrote a base brief with Nicole. Please feel free to log on to the Boston page of the APFA website, because it'll give you a good breakdown of how it differs at the Boston base. But also Nicole provided even a look at one of her days, just from about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and the phone calls and the time that she spent throughout that whole day and what she did. So like us as a flight attendant out on the line, our duty days and days doing union work, just because we might get a 5-hour PA day, I could be doing 12 to 15 hours worth of work. And so there is a lot of volunteer time, especially at our base, that has to be done, because we just don't have the budget, to be able to provide a little bit more to even it out. But like I said, I answer phone calls when I'm mid-sequence. I was in London a couple days ago, and I was answering questions, and I stayed up much later than I should have just to answer questions to the base.
Thank you, Kelly. Really appreciate that. I know, so for the base sizes, Kelly and DCA, Boston and DCA are probably the two that are under the full, the medium size bases. The rest of the bases are pretty much not quite at 2,000 any longer, right? Depending upon each base, I think LA is the next in size. Of course, we've already talked about our biggest base, Scott and LaGuardia. So Charlotte, LaGuardia, and Miami are all over 3,000 at this point. So thank you so much, you guys, for just talking about, we're not going to go through every base for this, but just giving everybody an idea of how you're paid to do the work and how your reps are. I know there's a lot of volunteerism going on, not just from you guys, but there is also, we have a lot of volunteers who've stepped up and helping us, not so much necessarily with base work, but more like our committees and things like that. We'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so we're going to move on to some of the other bases. And I know Kelly, Scott, and Amber talked about kind of how they're paid. What I'd like to hear from these other bases is basically how your base works. Please tell them how many flight attendants are at your base, the number of reps you have to help, and really how many meetings you're doing in a day. And now meetings are only one part of this job. I know from being a base rep for 7 years, you're on the phone a lot, answering a lot of questions. So I'm going to start with Chicago, and that's Ray Howard. She is the base president there. Uh-oh, Jay, you're on mute.
Okay, I knew my lips were moving. That's all I knew. Okay, so thank you so much. Yeah, I want to talk just a little bit about Chicago, because each base president runs their base differently, right? And we run the bases dependent on our flight attendant needs. So I will briefly say that this is my first term as base president. I have been vice president, but it's different when you're the president. So I want you to know that my base vice president, Justin, and I, we, like everyone, take your dues dollars so seriously. And every thought and everything that we spend, we think about what we're spending it on, because it's not my money I'm spending, right? It's you supporting our union. So in Chicago, we have a little over 2,600 flight attendants. That number can ebb and flow, right? We see bases increase and decrease like the wind. We never know what this company is going to do with us or for us. For me, Justin and I pretty much run our base. We have base council reps that we can pull on, and we do periodically, but he and I keep our phones on 24/7. We also have a base number that flight attendants can call and get help, and we have base reps that can manage that number and answer questions along with us. But my 2025 year word for the year is going to be sustainability. And what is sustainable? So is it sustainable for two people to work every vacation or work through life events, right? It is something that we chose to do. I'm not complaining. I love to work. I think I'm type A like that. Justin's the same. But we also have plans and thoughts for the future. What happens when I'm no longer your president, when Justin's no longer your vice president? Will you have other people who join and take over the office and are not willing to devote 24/7 of their life to a position, to a job? I will tell you why we do it. It is because we realize a couple of things. One, this job isn't about meetings and discipline and business drama. It is about people and it is about lives. And each time we speak with you, we hear you, we deal with you, you're letting us into sometimes a hard time that you're going through, and we take that very seriously. We also take confidentiality very seriously. And so it is a lot for us to hear and take on and deal with. But we do it with pleasure, we do it with grace, and we do it because we like what we do and we love our base. So what has changed in Chicago and what has changed system-wide is the types of meetings that we have. It used to be, it was a meeting. Now the company calls everything an investigation. And what that means is a lot of times they don't make a decision in a day. Things go 2 days, weeks, months. But that also means that instead of having one rep present, you need two. You may need one rep to represent, and you may need someone to scribe also. So what we have been able to do and contain, that is changing, and it's changing quickly. So we need to be able to have more people, but we also need to have fresh ideas, right? You want to volunteer, you want to do things, but as base presidents, we also want to thank you and pay you for your time and your effort. So we look at 13 to 20 meetings a week. And on top of all of that, we have phone calls from you, text, emails, along with phones, text, emails from our base manager, our two ops managers, our two CAMs, our 12 or 14 flight service managers, aside from base president calls and vice president calls and everything that goes along with that. Whether it's a call at 2:00 in the morning, somebody was texting me at 6:00 this morning. It doesn't matter, right? We're here for you. And I just want you to know, even though everything changes, we're here to change along with you. And we want to be proactive in how we change and how we progress into the future instead of bringing up the rear, if that makes any sense. So thank you.
Great explanation. I will say this, I know that all of you, a lot of what you said is what we hear every week when we meet with you guys on Tuesdays, because we meet every week with the base presidents pretty much. And you're all fighting for you're trying to make sure your flight attendants are always getting the best that we can do for them. And we all meet on Tuesdays to make sure that what's happening at the bases, if we can do something here at headquarters, and a lot of times, that means a meeting over with someone in management. I'm sure you guys know who that is, in order for us to get things done. So great explanation. I'm going to move on. All right. And I know that we've got Robin. She is on, but I'm not 100% sure she can speak. Robin, are you on? From Phoenix, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that the things that have changed in Phoenix since the dues increase is that, unfortunately for Socorro and I, we are basically part-time right now with the hours that we've got. but we are really still trying to keep up on everything. And we still work almost 24/7 for our flight attendants. We do about anywhere from 4 to 6 meetings a week and sometimes more, depending on the reserve not in position meetings that the company seems to pull out of nowhere. And we answer our phone calls at 4 o'clock in the morning, at 10 o'clock at night. We try to catch everything. But with the fact that we now have to fly 25 to 30 hours a month, that's going to have to change. We'll try to rearrange everything so that we can, someone will always be on duty. But we do want our flight attendants to know that we're still there for them. But that's why this dues increase is really needed, among other reasons. But thank you.
Robin, can I ask you, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not 100% sure, but you have some volunteers at your base who are helping you out, right?
Yes, we've got 5, or right now 4. We've got one that's dealing with some personal issues. I've got 4 that will do meetings with us. One of them is transferring on February 1st to Dallas, so it'll take us down. But we if anybody wants to volunteer, we would be more than welcome to have you there. We'll train you to scribe and teach you how to do meetings and anything else that you'd like to do. So we always welcome volunteers in Phoenix. We don't have a lot of money to pay anybody, but we do love to buy people lunch if they come and volunteer.
All right, thanks, Robin.
We'll work for food.
All right, we've got John Pennell, who is the DCA base president.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. You know, it's tough to follow Dre and Robin, and my my sentiments are exactly of what they said. You know, Boston is a medium-sized base. We are a medium-sized base in DC. But that being said, we do not give any pushback on when our flight attendants need us. We are out here 24/7, just like all the bases are. We're out here to answer calls, to attend meetings, to take care of allocations, to do everything that is needed. Our meetings with the national officers, our meetings with the company, meetings with our other base presidents. We are there to do all of those meetings. Now, when we talk about PPOs, DC does not have a full PPO. And I know we said that was a pay purpose only. We call it in PBS for pay purpose only. We called it earlier paper bid. So in DC, we do not have enough budget to give myself or the vice president a full PPO. And because of that, we go ahead and bid as low as we can in PBS. Myself, I hold about 72 hours. I share the rest of the budget with my vice president, who is very supportive, who is there for the membership, who is there for me. But when it comes to having additional bodies, we don't have that in DC, so we're trying to make it work the best we can between myself and the vice president. We do have a lot of people that do volunteer. I do shout out to those people that give us a lot of their free time. We have folks that volunteer for scribing, for doing special projects. We have a BCR that does help with allocation support. So we do have people that are interested in helping us, but we always need more. We, like Robin said, we'll buy you lunch. We'll be here for you. I know Scott said earlier that that's the way we all started. We started out volunteerism, and then we moved up the ranks. But don't feel that there's not a place for you, because we can always find a place for you. We do about 3 or 4 meetings, 3 to 4 to 5 meetings a week. Some weeks there's more meetings. But like Dre said, we're answering calls every day. We're dealing with our flight service managers. We're dealing with our CAMs. Right now we have a CAM that's in Charlotte that is helping out until our new CAM gets into place. But I'm dealing with the new CAM and the CAM in Charlotte. We have our base manager that's always reaching out. So they keep us busy. but we do share the time between myself and my vice president. But anybody else that would like to get involved, we're here for you. So just raise your hand and we'd be more than happy to put you to work.
Thank you, John. All right, and I've got Tracy Montanari from Philadelphia.
Hi there. In Philadelphia, we have just over 2,500 flight attendants. I think it's 2,551. And John Pratt, my vice president, and myself, we are on PPOs and we get paid for what we can hold in our PBS bid. We also have two base council reps that we're actively using who scribe for our meetings. They are removed with what we call a PA day, so they get paid 5 hours a day. And we are so grateful for them because in Philly, we do between 3 and 5 meetings a day, probably 4 to 5 days a week. So the rest of the time, it's filing nods, it's negotiating outcomes, it's attending dispute resolution conferences to find solutions to stuff. And we're trying to keep that pipeline going. So we have 2 of our BCRs that are scribing that will start doing meetings themselves starting January 1. And then we have 3 more people that unfortunately we have to bring on a volunteer basis because with our wonderful wage increase, we're down to the wire with what we can afford in the base. But we're constantly encouraging people to come and volunteer because we want to keep that pipeline going. But right now, John and I get paid anywhere from 85, I think in my PBS bid for this month, I bid 85 hours. And if I can hold it, great. If I can't hold it, then, so be it. But again, we do need volunteers in the base. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. And thanks to you guys for being so transparent. I think that, there's a lot being said out there, to say the least. But I think the transparency always helps, and I know, when flight attendants come to us, it's like, everybody is working. We know how hard you're working. We have a meeting every Tuesday at 3:30, and it's hard to get everybody on because they're in meeting. A lot of them are in meetings. They try, but I bother them to get out of those meetings so that I can make sure that they get caught up to date on what we're sharing.
And the company isn't decreasing
Oh,
number of disciplines.
no, I think that's what the base presidents, we definitely have heard. I'm going to segue that into Amber, who's going to talk about the number of meetings for those 7,200 and I can't remember how many flight attendants. But I know Amber's going to, probably she's got the record for, I think, the number of meetings in a day. So Amber, I'll pass it over to you.
So I just wanted to go because I know that we are a PPO base and I spoke to that earlier. And I want to put that into context as to what exactly we're doing here at DFW because we are quite busy and we signed up for this. So we signed up to be busy. So this is in no way complaining or anything like that. It's just we signed up for it, right? But our average meetings run anywhere between 8 to 15 meetings a day. Our record holder that we've had thus far was actually this year, and it was 22 meetings in one day. So that is a record for one base, I think, for any, I don't know, department, but it's crazy. But I like to go back and address, and Kelly touched on this just a little bit, but when we talk about the bases, obviously there's a sheer difference size between Dallas and, Boston or any of the other bases. And so with that comes with more flight attendants that have more contract and scheduling needs, more questions about, their attendance at their bank point that they're not getting, and more, needs of the flight attendants that we are trying to meet. And so the reps that are here at DFW are very, very good. Like I said earlier, we, because we are a PPO, there is a requirement of days that is required of the reps, but I assure you that the reps volunteer. They're on their days off. On the weekends, we're answering calls, we're answering texts, especially during IROPS. But we get about 50, there's 40 managers here at DFW, 7 attendance managers. And with the over 7,200 flight attendants, and we're outnumbered greatly with the 6 reps here at DFW. And we average about, I would say, about 40 phone calls a day, texts, And then, like I said earlier, the meetings are they are great. And we pretty much are booked out 2 weeks in advance. I feel kind of like it's in a negative way. I wish it was more positive, like a Taylor Swift, if we were booked that far out, but that's not the case. We're not getting any of the money or the rewards with it. So, but thus we are booked out 2 weeks in advance here at DFW. And we do welcome volunteers. We've had folks that have come in to learn how to scribe. Listen, for those that haven't done union work, I challenge you in getting involved in your base or whatever department that you have a passion for. I started out with that when I began doing union work. I volunteered, and we welcome it here at DFW. If you're interested, for those that it is the future of our union as well, you need to learn how to do base work and know what's going on. We welcome that. We've got happy to have you help answer phone calls, texts, and emails, and get you busy. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I just have one thing to ask Amber. Amber,
Yes.
has your caseload increased or decreased in the last couple of years?
Well, let me go ahead and tell you, it has increased. It has increased exponentially. It has increased the amount of meetings, the mind-numbing meetings that we have, and a lot of it is mind-numbing that management wants to bring forward. And but yes, it absolutely has, to the point where. Yeah.
Yes, and I know you get a lot resolved at the base, you and your reps, but I know we've seen a huge uptick in the cases that come to SBA, not only for discipline, but for terminations as well. So it's a cascading effect that the company is increasing their discipline and their accountability and all their things, and it's just adding more and more to all of us that we must represent folks. And
100%. I don't want them out there. I don't want them doing gate side checks, because all that means is we're going to have more tablets in uniforms, right? Like what do they say? Idle hands I forget that phrase about idle hands. Like you get in trouble more if you have all the time in the world. And apparently flight service does have that. They have the time in the world to do nothing but harass flight attendants. So the answer to that would be yes.
Which we would love our flight attendants to help us with, because let's say you've got those questions that you always go to your union rep for because they have the answers. How many of you ever think about going to your crew manager? Because at the end of the day, do they have the answer? We talk about this on a regular basis, right? We are doing a lot of work here. Your reps are doing tons of work, answering questions for you. And not to say, listen, you can hear it in the reps' voices, in the base president's voices. They all really care. They want to make sure you're taken care of. But at the end of the day, some of this work is the company's work. That they don't have people who can answer the questions. So we'll be working on changing that, though. I will tell you that, meaning how this works. One other shout out. I know there was a day during a really bad IROPS recently where Amber was in operations answering questions left and right for her flight attendants because there was nobody at the company to answer these questions. So I know that's not just Amber. I know that's many of the reps are there, but
we don't see management.
We don't see management doing that because they couldn't answer it. All right. So thank you all. We're going to move on. I think I've covered that part of it. So the next topic I want to talk about is I've seen a lot out there about the number of committees we have. Okay. And yes, we have added a lot of committees. I think that you guys have heard the base presidents talking about, everything they have to do at the base just to make sure that their flight attendants are taken care of. And so we've added the contract action team, which is mostly volunteer. Now, they were not entirely volunteer. As you heard our base presidents talk about the 5-hour PA day, we did do like one PA day for 3 days out there, sometimes 5 days out there. During the last month of the TA, we made sure we had our contract action team out there to answer your questions, because with 28,000 flight attendants, And with base presidents as busy as they are, we need a contract action team to be answering questions you have about something that you're voting on that's so important. So we have our EAP team, which is over 100 volunteers who do that work. We have our budget committee, which is volunteer. We have our DE&I committee, which is also a volunteer committee. We have our union outreach, which we just started recently based off of all the success we had with our contract action team and everyone getting involved in not just what's important to us, but what's important to our profession, which means joining other unions in their fight, because we know at the end of the day, that affects us. We also have our ballot committee and our negotiating committee and our KIT committee. Now, those committees are not volunteer. They are, the two of them are constitutional. And then the KIT committee, for the most part, three of them are paid for by the company. And so, yes, we've got a lot of committees, but they are also doing a lot of work for you. We're going to move on and talk to some of our department chairs. I didn't ask all of them to be on the call today because we've got too many and we wanted to make sure that they were still doing the work for you today. So today I asked Marty and Jeff, so Marty McMillan and Jeff Peterson, to be here with us and just to talk about the contract scheduling desk, because it's our busiest desk that we have here at APFA headquarters. And I don't know what we would do without it, quite honestly. As you guys heard, the base presidents are so busy. We know that when our flight attendants need an answer to something, they have to be able to get that answer. And so Marty and Jeff, if you can kind of talk about what you guys do, but also the change that's happened since the CBA.
Hi, everybody. I think it's important to talk about kind of what our department does in regard to the contract and scheduling desk. So currently we have 9 reps that work the contract and scheduling desk. That has gone down with the new CBA wage increases. We have had to reduce the number of reps that are available from 13 down to 9. That would be 11 if you count Marty and I. So each of those reps that are on duty handle 25 to 40 calls on any given day. But so they handle calls, they handle emails, we handle forms, we handle live chat when live chat is open. And so each of those calls or those emails or those forms require a lot of research to get to the bottom of the issue that is happening. Prior to the wage increases in the CBA, we had reps available from 7 to 7 every single weekday, and then from 9 to 5 on weekends via live chat. And then also 3 to 11 on weekdays live chat. We have had to reduce those hours as a result of the wage increases. And so reps are only available by phone from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then live chat 9 to 5 on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. So unfortunately, this has increased the wait times that flight attendants are experiencing to get through to a rep. And it decreases the hours throughout the day that reps are available. And this doesn't help out in times of IROPS. For example, yesterday in Dallas, when we don't have reps on duty in the evenings, unfortunately, that's just less work that our reps can do to assist flight attendants.
Yeah, we were really excited when we got to extend the hours. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then we weren't so excited when we had to bring the hours back down. I know you have one, we put it in the booklet, did you know? You have a rep, and because every call is logged, right? It says in 2024, a single contract scheduling rep answered 86,633 chats and 3,653 calls, with the average call lasting over 10 minutes. I hope everybody reads the Did You Knows. That is a lot. And we need those people. I think we need really flight attendants who know the answers to the questions. I wish I could say anybody can do that job, but it is a difficult job. And I know when we get experienced people who answer the questions, we are so fortunate because they help our flight attendants out so much. So I know it's a little bit harder right now. That's why we're asking for the dues increase, right? The dues restructure and increase. Uh-oh, I lost my agenda here. All right. So thank you, Marty and Jeff. Really, really hard workers. They are here at headquarters all the time. I will tell you, they are here later than almost everybody else in the building. I'm a lot of nights going in there and going, go home. It's time for you guys to go home because they work so hard for you. And a lot of what Marty and Jeff end up doing is they're the ones that fight with the company for just about everything, contract scheduling, probably everything. I shouldn't say just about. So usually when I walk in the room, they're always really mad. I'm going to tell you that. But they are excellent at their jobs. I don't know what we would do without you two. And I really feel fortunate, and I hope the flight attendants feel fortunate that they know that they have experienced reps answering their calls and that you're always fighting for them. All right, we're going to move on to safety, which is a whole different department and how it works. So we have Andrew on with us today, Andrew Reinhardt, who is our safety chair.
Hi, thank you. So safety, I don't know if many know, this isn't exactly widely known, but safety is a 24-hour department. So we have a rep who is staffed on duty 24 hours. Now our shifts now, and this is because of our raises, we have had to reduce not only reps, hours, but now we've had to extend our shift length. So our shifts start at 7 a.m. and they go to 7 p.m. and then 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next day. And then on the weekends, my reps pull 24-hour shifts. And so what they're doing, and I commend them, if any of them are on this call, thank you all so much for how hard you work, because as they know and many others know, safety can be grueling. So what they're doing is they're taking that call from the company, from the IOC, when there's an emergency happening or a critical incident affecting one of our flight attendants. And they're that first line of communication that then notifies either national officers and base presidents, but mainly base presidents, who then start their own form of outreach to our affected members. We're also contacting our EAP team, IOD, and other departments that provide support at APFA. And they pretty much are the first tip of the pyramid in terms of what types of support we provide in critical incidences at APFA, and we kind of begin the onset of procedures that provide you the support, and we act as like a checks and balances, ensuring the company is providing you support. So we're communicating, we're passing the message on. We're also, with our notification system, we're sending out checklists to affected members with steps that they need to follow in certain events. They also are receiving all of the SIRS reports that are filed. We get 100+ a day. We're also answering emails and calls that come in about safety and security concerns, and we're monitoring our notification system. We get people come in and use that as ways to alert us of things happening out there on the line, and we act and we activate our procedures, like I said, notifying everyone that is part of the support network at APFA based on those notifications. So that's what my reps are doing. And again, it's 24 hours, and some of their shifts a lot of them are through the night. Calls come in at all hours of the night. I mean, the one that we had the other day, I remember because I was having to work the shift. I'll get into why in a minute. But from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., we had 9 emergencies. And then there'll be times where in the middle of the night, they're getting called several times. There's things that are happening on red eyes in South America. It's a nonstop thing, and it's a type of department where we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Tomorrow could be quiet, or it could be just full of types of emergencies that are happening. And in my role, I'm the one who's on the meetings. I have about 2 to 3, if not more, meetings a day. I maybe have 1 day a week where I don't have meetings, and then I pretty much work every day myself, because I'm answering the high level events. I'm participating in any type of safety and security concern or new procedural change the company is trying to push. We're there to provide recommendation. And I'm also helping along with whatever types of initiatives that are coming in the future, whether that, be types of training that's coming and changes like that. So the roles of chair and rep for safety are pretty different. And I want to say how we're paid here, because I know everyone's been talking about it. But so my reps on a Monday through Friday, they're working 12-hour shifts. They're getting paid 5 hours of those 12, whether they're working the day shift or the night shift. My reps that work the 24-hour shifts on the weekend, they're only getting paid 5 hours of that. Now, I'm the only one that's on PPO, and there's a reason behind it, because I do need to be accessible. And I don't know how many times where I think I'm off tomorrow, something happens, Julie calls me and says, I need you to get down here. And so I need to be
Sure.
accessible, and I do fly too because I want to, and you know, it helps the bills get paid, but I will sometimes fly trips that are 30-hour layovers just to be accessible during that time. And I'm holding meetings, I'm taking calls. Where we work constantly at safety, and a lot of it is volunteer because like those shifts are so long. And I have a rep in particular that helps out flight attendants in training, and he works every single day as well. So that's how we're paid, and that's the type of shifts we're doing. And this isn't an if we get a dues increase, we're feeling it now. Right now, we can't afford to pay someone for about 6 days a month. So I'm having to work those shifts. And like I said earlier, 2 very different jobs. And so I don't mind working them, but the issue is, and I will, it's that I'm not able to provide the attention that a rep being paid to work that shift can. So if a flight attendant calls or emails in, I'm in meetings, I'm taking other high-level calls, I'm probably not getting back to them until later in the afternoon. And that's not the type of support that you all deserve. And the 6 days a month is only the beginning, because I'm the most senior in our department, and everyone in rep-wise, we're about a year or 2 away from each other. We're going to keep moving up the pay scale, and that 6 days a month is going to become 10 days a month that we can't staff. And I worry that eventually safety cannot, like Dre said, sustainability. I don't believe we'll be able to sustain a 24-hour operation. And I'm so appreciative of my reps, but if I'm not here anymore in this role, I don't own this role, it doesn't belong to me forever. New people come in, they might burn out quickly and say, this is too much. I feel like I'm on reserve. The phone's ringing off the hook all the time. And so that is something that I'm worried about. And I really hope people, our members, think about that, you know, it's all about the sustainability of our departments, of our union, and the type of resources and support that we provide them. And I know that many of the base presidents on the call can attest to just how often my reps, and myself included, we're making sure that the communication is happening, letting them know what's happening to you on the line if you're involved in a critical incident. And I hate the thought that that could potentially be at risk, because this company is very good at not wanting to pass information on to us that's affecting our members. And it would be devastating in the future if we're finding out days later about things that are happening to you, as opposed to now when we're just trying to keep our heads above water and making sure that everyone is being notified as soon as possible.
Thanks, Andrew. I would say this also, this is something for everybody to think about. So we have chairs and then we have reps in departments, certain departments. But it's really, really important that our chairs are in meetings, that they are on the high level things, that they're not, their entire day is not answering emails or calls. Because if it is, then as far as us holding this company accountable, that will never happen. One of the things that Andrew's department has done is he created the event notification system because the company wasn't doing their job. And we decided we had to do something different about this. And so Andrew came up with that. If he was answering calls and emails all day long, he wouldn't have the time to be working on things like that. Same for Marty and Jeff, same for everybody who is responsible for the department. They're not just responsible for answering to you, they're responsible for fighting this company and holding them accountable. Thank you, Andrew. I know Dre has her hand up. She wants to add in something here, I can tell.
Hi, and it's just going to be quickly. I just want to say thank you so much to Andrew and to the safety department, because we get text and calls at all hours of the night, usually in the middle of the night, but we respond to you. But not only that, you also deal with cabin ASAP and inadvertent slide deployments and LOSA. So many things that affect our lives. And, you know, when it comes to scheduling, like the contract scheduling desk, that's a 9 to 5 that we can contact Marty and Jeff or the reps about. Your department, as you said, is 24/7. So from a base level, we need that security, because what has happened is, whereas we used to get information from the base, our base leaders, We don't get that anymore, and it truly has fallen on your department to notify us, because there are times that we have to notify flight attendants in the middle of the night, right? We don't know what is happening. So I just want to reiterate how important your department is, your reps are, and a heartfelt thank you from me and Justin and my base, because what you do is tireless work. I like to say being a base rep is like being on constant reserve. Like you're on a wrap, but it's a constant wrap. You just don't get a day off, and you don't know how your day is going to be. But I'm gonna have to clamp that down a little bit because you trump us here at the base.
Oh.
So
Well,
thank you.
thank you. But I want to also shine that especially all the base president on the call, like it'll be 1:30 in the morning and I will get a response back from a text message about an event affecting our flight attendants. So it's like, it's a quilt, it's a network. We're all sewn in together here to make sure that support is provided. So thank you, but you all do a tremendous amount of heavy lifting yourselves to make sure that, it's full circle. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our retirement department that is a little bit different than contracts and scheduling and safety. So Kim's going to talk a little bit about, and I'll tell you, listen, Kim has an office here at APFA. Kim is on the phone morning, noon, and night. So Kim, give us I know they all see you in your retirement seminars on a regular basis, but just give them an idea of kind of what your day looks like.
Okay, so I'm basically a department of one person. And so I have the calls, I have the meetings with the companies, I have the emails, and I have to update and prepare our retirement presentations that we try to do at least once a month if we can. This year's been a little weird because of the TA and everything going on with that. And most of my calls are pretty lengthy because people have different things going on in their lives, and there's a lot to plan and think about when you're getting ready to retire. And people have some kind of discomfort with leaving their job and going on to something new, and they want to make sure they're ticking all their boxes. So I would guess my calls are usually about 25 or 30 minutes. And, there's a lot of people that I don't have a queue like the contract and scheduling reps, because people would be waiting in the queue all day. So a lot of my calls go to voicemail, and then sometimes there's a little bit of phone tag and getting back to people, but I always do my best to get back as quickly as possible. And when I started out in this job, the budget was very low, and I was flying maybe 1 or 2 trips a month, and then, gradually worked back up to where I could fly 1 trip a month, and then I could fly 1 trip a month if I had to, if I wanted to bring in Patrick Hancock or Ron Harris to do something and help me out. I could give them a trip removal. Well, now the way it's going, it looks like it's probably going to be back to maybe, flying a trip and leaving the phone unattended for a few days more than I would like to. And if somebody is coming in to assist, I may give them a PPO day instead of a trip removal. And normally all the times that I'm working on the updating of the packet and our presentation is after hours, so that I can't do that during the day. And I also have to try and stay on top of things with the company and make sure when they change their policies, I get that out to the members as quickly as possible. So it's an ongoing struggle. And definitely, I want to have the time to spend with people to walk through their issues when they're getting ready to retire. I have so many people who say I've never really needed to call the union, but now that I'm retiring, I really appreciate your help, and it's worth all the dues I paid for all these years, because really right now the company is so siloed and how they have their information spread out all over the place. It's very difficult for people to pull everything together that they need when they're getting ready to retire. And I don't want to do their job for them, but sometimes it's helpful to have someone who can put all those pieces together for people. And right now the company's just not doing it. I had 2 people today saying they just retired and they're still waiting for information from the company. They're expecting a call or a packet or something. And I had to say, guess what? You're probably not going to get that, but I can send you a packet. I'll send you one of our packets. So, you know, it's an all day, every day thing. I'm in office hours, but sometimes I call people who are needing, you know, emergency information. Like over the weekend, I unfortunately had to talk to somebody who was sick with cancer and having to retire very suddenly, and wanted to make sure they had everything in place so they could leave their pension and their life insurance to their daughter, you know. So I'm always available to take calls like that after hours and on the weekends and so on. Fortunately, although that happens, it doesn't happen that often, but it's good to be available. And this is part of what the dues money allows us to do.
Well, and one of the things that we have been doing since COVID are the virtual retirement town halls. And I'd say we've hosted one almost every single month for the past 4 years.
Right.
And you know, that takes time and effort on your part to, you know, run those and make sure our flight attendants get what they need on their road of retirement.
And I'll just make one last plug on that. In case they weren't able to join it, they can always look at the recording
Always watch the
online.
And I wanted to say that by doing this virtually, we're saving the union a lot of money, because if we used to go to all the bases, which we'd love to do, we like to visit people in person, but we had to get hotel rooms, we had to have the flights taken care of, we had to have, sometimes we had to pay for a room at the base to have the seminar. So by doing everything virtually, even though maybe we don't like it as much, we're really reaching more people, and we're saving the union members a lot of money.
100%. Okay, thank you, Kim. We're going to move on to our technology solution architect, which is Todd Smetala, who has come on in the last, let's say, 3 years, Todd, about 3 years ago, right? And started helping the union, and it's been a tremendous help, to say the least. We have Todd to thank for the website. Todd is one of, there are quite a few who worked on that. But also, I'm going to let him tell you everything that he's responsible. This is a new position that we brought on at APFA that was really needed. And I don't think we really realized how much we needed it until now, when we were like, well, how do we exist without this? So Todd, if you can just tell everybody kind of what you do.
Sure. Yes, I'm Miami-based, and I came on originally to help with the website redesign and the content update. And I was working with Laura, our UX UI specialist, as
Social
well,
media.
and our social media. We all
Yeah.
kind of have become
Yeah.
other things since those early days. And Ivy, our APFA webmaster, she's on staff, as well as with Josh. So our little team started with a complete redesign of the website. My role in that was really with kind of a lot of the back end things and the different features, maybe different menu options, things like that. Having these plugins like the Power BI plugin that lets us see these fancy, fun charts and calculators, all of that, so we can put that on the website. Also, I work with, I really do work with all of the other different departments, especially with contract and scheduling. So we've done a lot with the PBS award files there, the CN day calculators, all of that kind of stuff.
And that helps our flight attendants. They can see
it
PBS
helps.
awards. They
Exactly,
can see the CN days now.
Exactly. And I came from a PBS background. I was one of the instructors back in the day. So it was always something I was really interested in, to bring more transparency to that extremely complex system.
And that was a huge amount of work for us to get that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you can see where your award lies in relation to other people at your base, what you might be able to hold at another base. If there's lots of stuff that the company really should have put out there, but they never did. And so we found our own way to put that stuff there. And
what do we want to do in the future?
well, lots of stuff in the future.
Yeah.
But I mean, even with the present, still we have, I'm working now with Larry on revamping the SBA changes that are coming up. There's a whole new flow now that we have the Grievance Resolution Council. So we need to revamp that entire flow. We worked with the single sign-on option for flight attendants. So that's really, it's nice when you're going in to vote right now. It's quick and easy, but there is a lot that's happening there. We're tying in Unionware, which is our member database. This is something that's quite antiquated, this system, you know, and we're bringing that into a modern situation of our voting system and then also our website. So it's kind of taking everything there. When you go to log in to vote, it's grabbing information from there. It knows immediately if you are eligible, if you owe any dues, all of that. If you do owe, if you're in arrears, it's going to give you an option to go and pay it and then come back and then vote. It's all real time. So all of this took, you know, it's not an easy
About a year,
setup.
right?
Yeah,
At
it took
least.
a year.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's going on with there. The phone system as well. It will look up a member's information, so the reps from contract and scheduling can go in there and put the information in, log all of that information much quicker, much faster. It's just helping things out in general. And then to your question, of course, the big thing that we want to do in the future is a nice app.
I'll say it again. We
Right.
want to do an app. You know?
I mean, but my idea for it is there's a lot I have there. So, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that once the dues increase is passed, because that's necessary for anything like that to come along.
So before we started this, one of the things we were talking about is kind of where this union has come from and where our flight attendants, how things used to work. And I think John Pinnell had some really good thoughts on that. So I wanted to give John Pinnell a moment to talk about that.
Sure, thank you, Josh. So I've been on the board for about 8 years, and you know, what I've seen is with recently, especially with Todd and Laura and others that are working at APFA, and Josh, of course, there's been so much change in our technology. I mean, we've streamlined our communications. I mean, we've got social media channels. We've updated our policies, our newsletters. We've got digital resources that are out there with the electronic voting. We've got our digital grievance, things like that, things that we didn't have in the past. Everything was done longhand. We've got enhanced transparency where you can see your reports on the APFA website. You can see the documents on the online portals, things like that. Real-time advocacy has been something that has been great too, with our virtual meetings and rallies and things like that. So there's just a lot of things that I've seen that have changed, that have made my job easier. I think they make APFA as a whole move forward into, you know, the new technology. As you know, as all the flight attendants know that are on the call and all the union folks, the company is moving into technology. Years ago, we carried a paper manual around in our bag, and now we've got that small iPhone. And so we are moving towards technology with the company, and I think the union is keeping up as well.
Thank you for that. It has been a labor of love. There's a lot of very talented people working at your union, and a lot of people that are working really hard to continue to improve this place. So thank you for those thoughts, John.
Thank you, John. All right, we're going to move on to a few questions here. And one of them is, one of the things that we've seen out there from our members is they're asking, are we taking away the members' right to vote for a dues increase? And I know, unfortunately, Randy really wanted to be on and answer this today from Miami, but he had a personal emergency that came up. And I know I've got a few base presidents who I think want to talk to this. One of them is Tracy from Philadelphia.
Hi, yes, I just want to touch on the fact nobody's giving up their right to vote. Absolutely not. It's constitutional, and any constitutional changes have to be with a membership vote. So I want to be clear about that. The restructure, and why it's called a dues restructure and not an increase, is because we're actually proposing that we restructure how we pay our dues. So instead of asking for one lump sum to be able to cover our operation all at once up to the top out pay scales in 5 years, we decided it was more manageable and it was more fair to attach it to the 6-year pay rate So it will gradually increase with that pay rate. But keep in mind, if something happens and our pay rates go down for whatever operational reason, your dues will also go down with that. So initially it's $12 and change, but for the next 4 years after that, it's less than $1. So it gradually will keep up. And that's why we decided to change that. Moving forward, you'll always have the right to vote. So if it turns out that that ends up not being sustainable, then we would have to go back to the membership again to have it changed. So I just want to assure everybody, nobody's giving up their right to vote at all.
Thank you, Tracy. And Kelly, did you want to weigh in on that?
That's one of the things that I've already said to my base, because that was asked on one of our Facebook pages was, you know, we're giving up this right to vote. And it's not the case. You know, we're looking at it saying we elect our leadership for base president, vice president every 2 years, national officers every 4 years. If we decide even a few years down the road and say, hey, the members at will are saying we don't want this as our dues amount anymore, or that, you know, we think that this should change, or if someone can come up with a better, more manageable solution to make sure that APFA is sustainable, then absolutely 2, 4 years, 5 years down the road, let's take a look at that. But for the, you know, for the immediate time, you know, it's one of those things that we're looking at saying, we know that all of our pay has increased. We know that dues haven't increased. We have to make sure that this union is sustainable for our flight attendants, that we are able to provide the services that our members need and want. You know, and I know that I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook about people saying, well, I want APFA to provide more. At the current pay scale, it's just at $41 a month, it's not sustainable. And so I would love to see more resources, but we're trying to find ways to be more fiscally responsible and say, okay, well, this isn't a sustainable 16-hour duty day for a union rep, or 24-hour a day, you know, for the safety department. I think that's the first time I heard that. And I am floored that safety is getting 5 hours for a 24-hour duty day, because I know our flight attendants we would never ask that of our flight attendants in a contract, to work 24 hours and only get paid 5 hours. So, you know, I think that it's not taking it away from the membership. It's just saying we're trying to be responsible, saying we know we're going to get these dues increases, or excuse me, these pay increases for the next 5 years. Let's make sure that we increase the dues to go along with that pay step, so that way we continue to maintain a sustainable union and provide service.
Thanks, Kelly. I would say this also, on page 25 of the booklet, it shows all of our members what the dues are for other unions. And a lot of unions just go with a percentage, right? That is how a lot of the unions deal with wage increases, as they go with a percentage of what you make. The decision here was made to go with the 6-year pay step. And I think if we would have gone for a flat rate, it would have been a very high number, because it would have been for something that we would have to deal with as far as the 92.79 top out wages in year 5 is what we would have had to have looked at when we were determining what that flat rate was, not 82.24. So Josh is showing you right now in the booklet that, as well as I think you can see in the booklet, we are one of the very few unions where that actually vote on something like this. At almost every other union, this is not a vote out to the members. And so, yes, we are listening to you. I want to make sure everybody realizes we are listening, and we are trying to make the best decisions for the longevity and for the future of this union.
So just like Julie just said, you know, we're one of the few unions that it's us and APFA that vote on dues increases or decreases. All other unions that we researched, the dues are set by some governing body, whether it be the board of directors, some sort of executive committee. So yeah, we are, even with this change, like Tracy had said, if we needed to change it again in the future, it's our members that set the dues. It's not the union leadership. And
Thanks, Josh.
I also want to, because we've talked a lot about how the bases are paid, how representatives are paid here. And I want to go back to our dues versus wages comparison chart to really just wrap that conversation up so everyone understands exactly why we have to request a dues increase from our members. So as all of our base presidents and department chairs have indicated, our representatives are paid based on what they can hold as a flight attendant. And one of the great consequences of our contract with the wages increases that we've received, unfortunately, that's less money that are $41 a month that has to stretch further. So as you can see at the chart, for $41, our representatives who are getting paid more every single year, that's less money in the budgets that we are able to budget out for representatives. So what that looks like and what it has already started to look like in all of our bases is fewer representatives that you'll see available for meetings, which there are many that our base presidents have talked about. Our representatives at headquarters and all of our departments are critical departments that support you. You'll see fewer representatives in those departments as well. And year over year, that is going to unfortunately get worse unless we're able to achieve a dues restructure. And so as you can see on the top chart, you see the initial dues increase would be $12 and I believe 67 cents a month. And then after that, it would be a 74-cent increase year for the next year, an 82-cent increase for that following year, and then 85 cents for that last year. So it is a reality of the wage increases that this contract achieved, but one that is necessary for us to change to ensure the long-term sustainability of this union, because we do need to have competent representatives here at the union to represent our flight attendants.
Thank you, Josh. All right. So I know we've gone pretty long here. It's been about an hour and a half. We could probably go about 5 hours on this conversation. So I'm going to try and do kind of a lightning round, which for everybody here, kind of you guys should know what that means. Like, let's get through it quick. The next question I had, because I've seen a lot out there about people saying they need to do reform before we're going to, vote in a dues increase, right? And we have been doing reform since 2021. We just recently at our fall board meeting added 3 more resolutions, I believe it was, for reform. Quickly, I'm going to go through. We put a cap on hours that union reps can be paid. We added more days because in the past it was 18 days for a full trip removal. That was based on line bidding. And so once we went to PBS, we went up to 110 hours. We realized that we need to increase the amount of days our reps would get if they're holding up to 110 hours. So we also passed a resolution on that. Larry, you want to talk about the mileage?
Yeah, we updated the policy to no longer reimburse APFA representatives for mileage between their residence and the airport, as well as eliminating the transportation from their residence to the airport.
In-base.
Yeah, in-base, correct. And also, I know Amber touched on it earlier, or you just did, about the 18 days that there was definitely a change there. Yes.
Okay, and Josh, you want one of the other questions that I've been hearing is you guys keep talking about how much money you've saved by doing all these changes to the building and having our meetings here at APFA instead of at a hotel. We have made lots of changes here. We've made this a very collaborative workspace. We have a lot of spaces that we can, so that nobody has to be renting hotel space and costing the members that. So Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of those changes?
Sure. One of the things that came out of the COVID pandemic was our representatives had to work remote. And, you know, that saved a lot of money on our hotels and our per diems that representatives were receiving. But the space that we are in right now is our Unity Pays conference room. This used to be a space that, and actually I'll zoom out so people can see the room that we're in. This space used to be a cubicle farm, and it was just a bunch of cubicles in here. And because the representatives were no longer working in the building, we were able to clear this space out and turn it into a conference room. And by doing that, we are able to host our annual board meetings here, our trainings and events, and things that once before needed to be off-site, and we had to pay for meeting space. The money that we have saved from that we've been able to repurpose that into new positions at APFA to expand the resources for our members. We were able to use a lot of that money on the website and you know, single sign-on voting, those types of things, expanding our website. We have a legal department here at APFA now, whereas before we were spending a significant amount of money on outside legal counsel. So we have a legal staff in-house now. We have people that are focusing on our social media. We have Todd. Those are the types of things that we've been able to repurpose those funds into.
Okay, I'm gonna have one more.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna move on.
Data.
Data. So one of the biggest things for us is that we collect our own data, that our data is not just data that's coming from the company. And so we hired an additional data analyst who has helped us tremendously, especially in negotiations. I can tell you, having our own data was really, really important. So that was another position that we added here.
Yep.
Okay. So how much money is in I believe they mean the negotiations fund, NNRF. Also, how much did we use in the last negotiations? Currently, in our negotiations fund, we have $13.7 million in that fund today. We use $13.7 million. In our last negotiations, that was 5 years, longer than most. That cost us almost $7 million. Hence why you can see, if we continue to add to this until we get to the next negotiations in 5 years, we will have more than enough money in that fund for negotiations. That is why Measure 2 is on the ballot, because we want to make sure that how we are using your money is used for you on a day-to-day basis. And of course, 100%, we would never allow the negotiations fund ever to get too low. That is a fund that we needed to have. I'm very happy we had it. It enabled us to do many things in this negotiations, but it is a really important measure on the ballot. Please make sure you're aware of it. But it's by us putting in a floor and a ceiling. I know there's concern. People are really worried, like, oh, you can't ever have too much money in a negotiations fund. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
At the end of 5 years of bargaining, we have close to 14 million in there. And for the next 5 years, if this change doesn't happen, for the next 5 years, we'll continue contributing to it, which will balloon to, I think we looked at maybe 20+ million, more than we can spend in a single bargaining. So that's why that's ballot measure. And one thing that
some of that money could go for our app.
And the money that we would be putting into the NNRF during those 5 years can really be put towards our member services.
Of course, to our bases, and so that they can have more reps.
And one thing I really want to make sure people know is we cannot touch the money that's in the NNRF unless it is money that is used for negotiations or negotiations related activities. Yeah.
All right. Next question. Can we delay our dues restructuring or increase for 6 months like our boarding pay? So October 1st is when the wages went up for everyone. Not just wages, per diem also went up. On January 1st is the 401k increases. The last to be implemented is the boarding pay. And there were many discussions about this, about how long we could wait, how long should we wait, should we push it off until after boarding pay? And at the end of the day, from all the conversations that you've heard today, you can see these base presidents as well as departments have already had to cut back because of the wage increases. And so no, the decision was definitely made that we need to go ahead with this today. And, you know, yes, boarding pay will be here April 1st. And so we know that everybody can't wait for that, but the wage increases really made it vital that we go out there today and we try and have this dues restructure happen now. Okay, and base presidents, if you want to add anything, just raise your hand. I'm going to keep going because it's been so long. I think, Josh, you're going to share the screen on this one. This question was, I feel a dues increase is warranted. Thank you. However, I will not vote in favor of dues increase until I can see APFA is actually following through with contractual language and releasing those who are in bad standing and have made no effort in becoming dues current. Sending out letters doesn't seem to phase the 2,800 people who are in arrears. Start releasing people and people will pay up. That came from a member, not from me. Just want to make sure everybody realizes that. So I will say that this is not something that we have just been sitting back and doing nothing. Josh has the screen up here. You can see how much we have collected. There is a process when someone is in dues arrears. Earlier today, we had an EC meeting or an executive committee meeting where anyone who is in arrears has the ability to put in for dues forgiveness. The EC does vote on that every EC meeting. And so we have to go through the process. But I can assure you, no one is just sitting back and letting this happen. This is happening. We are working on this every single week. I see the letters go out every single week, and our flight attendants have been put on notice for sure. So just wanted to make sure we could address that, and you can see how much we have collected.
Since 2022, we've collected 1.5 million.
Yeah.
And the process continues every day.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we're almost there, you guys. Okay, I think we already answered this. This is basically about the cost savings, and they wanted to know how much per flight attendant does each base get from that savings. And your base presidents, they vote on the budget at every convention in every spring. And so that is a formula. And I will say that, you know, it's not the easiest of times, but it's been working out quite well for them as far as all of them voting on the budget. I do have here, it says, why is there such a large discrepancy in pay, especially between base presidents? And I know you guys heard from many of the base presidents today. They all were very transparent with you as far as how they're paid. It's their budget. They determine how they are going to use that budget at their base. And ultimately, they're the ones responsible for getting back to you. So all of them do it a little bit different. That's probably why you see the discrepancies in how much the base presidents are paid. Looking for any hands in case anybody wants to add in. I think that question is already answered. I think I already answered that one earlier. That's about the committees and why we have so many committees. Want to make sure everybody realized a lot of those committees are volunteer.
Can I take 19?
Yes, go ahead, Josh.
All right, so we have a question. Is APFA trying to change our dues language to meet AFA language? No. AFA, in fact, has a flat rate. So whereas APFA is currently at $41 a month, AFA has a flat rate of $50 a month. And theirs is set by the average of CWA dues, because AFA is AFA CWA. And their dues are set by the average of CWA dues. So they have a single amount. And like I mentioned earlier, their members do not get a vote on their dues amount. That's something that's set by their leadership.
Okay, we got one more. I think we've done the calculator a lot, so I'm not sure if we want to go back there. But it says, why are dues not being at a set rate, which we addressed earlier? By attaching to a 6-year flight attendant every year hired, it says fired, will increase. Most new hires can't afford to pay these dues even at the new rate of pay. So I think that's where the calculator really comes in, okay? Believe me, when we were negotiating this contract, we were negotiating for all 28,000, but especially for our new hires, who the rate of pay was so behind inflation and many things. So I will say the dues have always been more than the rate of pay for a new hire. If you go back and you look in time and you look across the unions, you will see that even when there's a flat rate. So listen, this dues restructure increase is for the future of this union. It's for the future flight attendants. It's for the things that you want. The app, we know flight attendants, believe me. I know everyone misses the app that is no longer happening right now because the company has shut it down, which we've been in discussions with. But there are many, many things that we want to be able to do for you, for the members, to make your lives easier as a flight attendant. And we are going to continuously work on it. And we hope that we have answered many of your questions today. I think the biggest part of today was you hearing from your base leadership, from your department chairs, and from our flight attendants that work here, how they're paid. They're paid the same as you are because they are flight attendants. And anyone here who raises their hand to do these jobs, they cannot be harmed because they're raising their hand. Now, mind you, they all told you about their lives. So I'm not sure many people are going to be raising their hands going forward because they're working on the weekends. And I can tell you for sure they are working on the weekends because I do make a lot of phone calls on the weekends. But this is for the future and this is for all of you. And I know you have a lot of questions. Please utilize our call center and read the booklet. The reason we did the booklet is because we feel it's so important for us to provide you with the facts and make sure you have the facts, okay? I know that there's a lot swirling out there, as there always is, but really today, for your future, you need to make sure you read this booklet and ask the questions that need to be asked. I know the base presidents are getting emails and they're answering them about this dues restructure. Please, before you vote, make sure that you have all the information you need to make an informed vote.
And I have put our base presidents up on the screen, giving them an opportunity to just say bye-bye, any parting thoughts that you'd like to share before we end today's session.
Okay, I'll go first. So I just want to say thank you for today, but truly you have said what I've reiterated to my base every single time there's a vote on something, and that is educate yourself and do that by asking questions of people that are in the know and can give you factual information, but also please vote. Right? If you don't vote, your voice isn't heard. And people at my base know I preach that every Sunday at the sermon, that you have to let your voice be heard. There is no right or wrong, right? But voice your thoughts and your opinions and vote. So thank you.
Thank you, Dre. Anyone else?
I want to echo what Dre said. She stole the words right out of my mouth, and that your voice is that's how you're heard, and that is our right, and that we are able to have a union, and that we're able to have able to vote on it. And I encourage everyone to utilize the resources that are available. That's on the website. That's in the booklet. That's at the call center, and not just realize solely on social media, but to please, be sure to, if you have a question or a concern, to be sure to reach out to the appropriate areas. We've put that information out there to educate everyone. And, you know, remember that that's truly what this is. We really are the union. And that's it, really. So sorry.
Thank you, Amber. All right, anybody else before we sign off? Well, listen, I really want to thank our base presidents for being on today. I know how busy all of you are. We really appreciate you getting on this call today, talking with the members, and thank you to the department chairs who are also on today. I know that this is a really critical time for everyone. And of course, it's the holidays also. So I want to wish everyone happy holidays and also fly safely. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Bye-bye.